Donald, great to be back in Jersey and really appreciate you giving up your time again to come over from Guernsey.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what a beautiful setup, and the scenery is just fabulous, isn't it?
It is wonderful here. It's wonderful here.
Yeah, so for those who don't know Donald, Donald's a real estate property lawyer from Spencer West, so tell us just a little bit about Donald.
You're quite right. We moved our real estate team into Spencer West maybe 15 or 16 months ago from an offshore law firm. Spencer West is an international firm. It's got offices in all sorts of places.
Yeah.
It's got corporate team, it's got litigation, it's got employment, everything you could really want from a law firm. But I particularly specialise in real estate, commercial real estate and residential. Yeah. We act for lenders, we act for investors into the UK property market.
A number of our clients always ask us to recommend a lawyer. You know, we very much appreciate the services and professionalism that you guys have, and we do try best to recommend people to you. So if people are looking for a real estate lawyer, what questions should they be asking? Experience, knowledge?
Yeah, exactly. So knowledge, you'd like to think knowledge is a given with any form of lawyer, particularly real estate lawyer. You've got to know the market, you've got to know the specialisms of your expertise. In terms of experience, I think it's really important that they know the market that they're transacting in.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for a lawyer, you want to see that they've got a track record in completing transactions in a timely fashion.
How would people go about checking that out? Maybe on the website or...?
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at testimonials, maybe?
Testimonials, websites, like, you know, a lot of our clients come from word of mouth through your good selves, through other lenders and contacts, and I would say that the business that we've built up has all been through completing transactions in a timely manner, with good advice. The way that we transact, we make sure that we're commercial about everything we do. We know that a client wants to get a transaction completed, they want to know that they're getting an asset that is safe, but they want to get it done in a sensible time frame as well. So you've got to think about all the different facets of the transaction, and I think we're in a position where we select our clients. We don't take on too many transactions. We want to make sure that the transactions that we are doing are done to the satisfaction of our clients. We take instructions from clients who we know we can do a good job for, who we know we specialise in the correct area of law to help them out with, and we get to know our clients. We learn what they want from the transaction. We learn what their risk appetite is. We learn what kind of asset class they want from their property, what they're looking for out of the property transaction. I think that's the main thing for any solicitor, is to know who your client is.
Yeah. Just one point on there then, Donald, which is quite important, I guess, from clients listening to this, is risk appetite. Just expand a bit more on that, would you? So I know there's obviously different types of processes within the legal system and things, so if you could just explain that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take an example of a client who is going to buy an area of land and he's going to develop it. He's going to build some flats, he might be building commercial property on it. There's a legal due diligence process that you go through to make sure that the title that he's going to acquire is good for what he or she wants to do with it. There's a contract to purchase, there's a raft of information that makes up a report on title. All sorts of searches you can carry out over the property, you make inquiries of the other side solicitors. In my career, there'd be very few reports on title that I present to a client that are entirely clear, and we say, on you go, complete the transaction. So once the report on title is ready to discuss, it can take an hour, it can take several hours to go through a report on title with a client. We make sure that they understand each element of the report, what it is that we're trying to tell them about it. If there is any risk, there might be unknown information, there might have been a plan of permission for the property, it might have expired, there might be work done on the property that hasn't been authorised by the local authority, or there might be inquiries that you make of the sellers, then the sellers are unwilling or unable to give you responses. So your client, the buyer or the lender, will need to know what the risk is of them proceeding without sufficient mitigation, or if they want to take out indemnity insurance, which you know is often a sensible solution for a client who wants to proceed with a transaction. A client can't make an informed decision without knowing what risks are there, and that's what we find from several transactions. If there is some sort of issue, close down, the transaction really slows down, nothing seems to happen for weeks and weeks. And you know, property law isn't rocket science. There's always going to be a way around it. It's just a question of how creative you need to be,
navigating
or
that
what needs to be done. And that's what, in terms of the willingness of all the parties in transactions to get it done. And you know, for that to happen, there needs to be complete transparency between buyer, lender, and the seller, and on that basis, you know, each party can make an informed decision.
There's obviously a lot going on at the moment with property. What sort of current trends are you seeing at the moment then? Are you seeing sort of developers coming back to the market slowly? That's something that we're seeing. So last year that dropped off a little bit, but, you know, dare I say it, there may be some little green shoots and things appearing. There's a potential base rate reduction, which I personally think is really needed. Whether that happens this month or in August, I'm not sure, but I think that'll really create a little bit of a stimulus to get things going, but we've obviously got the election.
Well, I think that sort of in the second half of last year, or maybe even earlier, the market was reacting to the rise in interest rates, and there was a hardening period where I think everyone went back to the drawing board. There were less transactions happening. You know, we've got a lot of development lending clients, we've got a lot of bridging lending clients, and during that period, loans were still maturing. There was refinancing to bridge lenders, there was restructuring between the lender and the client, some of it more friendly and collegiate than others. A lot more I was down in Mippen and Cannes earlier this year, and it was development exit products that I was hearing from a lot of lenders, because a developer would be completing a transaction to practical completion, but the units weren't selling. They were coming to the end of the development loan, need to move, and instead of into an expensive bridge, development exit seems like the right thing. So that seems to be a product of the circumstances that the interest rate brought us. But during this hardening period where there's been a slight decrease in activity, I think that land prices probably have reduced a bit. You know, development costs, construction costs have been rising. I think developers and lenders are getting used to this new normal. I mean, there's no other choice. You know, it is what it is.
There's still a big housing shortage, isn't there, in the UK, particularly, you know, England, you know, needs more housing stock.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the space that my client lenders are operating in are these sort of small to medium enterprises who are building these, you know, maybe sort of between 50 and 100 units per site, and you know, that's critical to solving this crisis. And as I say, the wheels seem to be back on the wagon, and long may that continue. And what I'm seeing is that the lenders that they're choosing, you know, there's several lenders in the market, but these developers, during the harder times in the last year or so, they've obviously made these relationships with lenders, and it seems to be those relationships and the confidence in pushing a transaction through from completion of the loan to completion of the development. That seems to matter as much, if not more, than the specific rate that they're being given in order to.
It's just getting the deal done, isn't it? To be fair, and you know, it's quite easy from our perspective. You know, clients come on the phone in discussions with this particular lender or our own bank. They've quoted this particular interest rate. What can you get? Well, I just, you know, back to, can they deliver on it?
Exactly.
You know, some banks, you know, it's quite easy just to put a figure out there to hook somebody in, but, you know, can you deliver on it? And in some circumstances they can't. But I think that's particularly from our side, is we had real value.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of experience.
It's the brokers like you, it's the lawyers like us, but it's also the valuers. And,
everyone plays an integral part of it.
Where you're in a development situation, you've got your monitoring surveyor as well, and all these parties need to come together. You need to have confidence that they can deliver what you want, and that's why, you know, it's not just the lender, it's their professional team around them that's so critical.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
In terms of trends on the residential side, we've also got residential investment clients, we've got buy-to-let mortgagors, lenders in Guernsey and in the UK. They seem to be seeing an upturn. There's obviously been this promise of leasehold reform. Talk
us through that in a bit more detail. And I know it's sort of quite new in things.
It's new, and it's been pushed through a little bit too fast because of the snap election that's been called. We're not getting as much of a change as we may like, but I mean, the concept of leasehold has been in England for centuries. One of the real benefits of Scots law, coming from my original background, is that leasehold doesn't exist as a title. It doesn't exist as an asset class, and I think that, you know, if England didn't have that, it would be all the better. However, we're looking to simplify it. They're gonna, you know, they've already banned leasehold houses. The idea was to make ground rent zero and to simplify the process, make it a lot fairer in terms of service charges, in terms of renewing leases, and in terms of granting longer leases, because previously the trend was that your average lease would be 125 years, 99 years maybe, or 250, and each year that it diminishes in value, and at some point it comes to the stage where you have to pay to renew it.
Yeah.
And this is all expense that somebody who buys a leasehold property might not necessarily know, particularly overseas investors who might not be familiar with the concept and who might not be getting the advice they need.
Yeah.
And so all the legislation is promising.
Yeah.
It's getting us a little bit closer, but we're not quite there yet.
So, something that I found quite interesting recently was, particularly in Jersey, you can only complete on a property on a Friday.
Yeah.
The lawyer has to go present the case into the court. And is it similar in Guernsey? Is it two days? Is it?
Guernsey's got Tuesday and Thursday, yeah, so it's very similar. So completely
How does that work?
abstract for us dealing with English transactions. You can complete every day of the week. I suppose it means that you have to be a lot more organised.
Right.
It means that you've got a specific target date in mind. And I think in the UK, particularly in this market, we're seeing exchanges happening much closer to completion, which leaves everything a little bit more uncertain up in the air. So it's not necessarily, it sounds like it's going to prohibit business, but actually, I think it does.
Does that tend to work quite well then in the Channel Islands, and having a set date that everybody works towards, and the lawyer would go down with all the exchange documents,
exactly,
and then given the keys? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think I think 2 or 3 days rather than one would probably be preferable for all professionals. But it's a tradition that somehow is still here. I don't know how much longer it will last, but I think it does serve to focus minds, and on a transaction by transaction basis, that's really the key. Keep everyone's eyes on the prize, which is obviously completion day.
Yeah, and just staying with Jersey then, if I may. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here, but
certainly try.
So just staying with Jersey then, Donald. So do they have like back on the mainland, like a land registry search, a database? So, in the UK you can pay a couple of pounds, £2 or £3 to do a search, and it'll bring you a copy of the title, who owns it, any mortgages on there, any covenants that may be on there. Is this something similar in the Channel Islands?
So in Guernsey, we've got this facility online called the Cadastre, where you can identify each individual unit of real estate on the island, and you can find out who the owners are. However, if you're looking for information such as if there's a lender or more than one lender against each property, that would require you to go up to the court. In Guernsey it's called the Greffe. You would do a search there, a physical search, find out your information there, and
so they've got like lots of books basically, and you just got to...
Exactly right. And the junior lawyers in the respective firms usually find themselves spending quite a lot of time in the
dusting off old books.
Exactly right, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. That's really interesting.
One of the real benefits in being a part of such an international firm like Spencer West is, we've recently completed a transaction where I was able to manage the whole process, even though there were so many different lawyers involved. So we had a Guernsey trust structure where there was a BVI company which was acquiring trading businesses, which included real estate cross-border, both in England, Wales and in Scotland. There were hotels and other commercial properties like that. And on the face of it, that's incredibly complex transaction, lots of different sets of lawyers, lots of different expertise. You needed real estate, obviously, but you also needed corporate opinions, you need employment advice, and other corporates in terms of the share purchase agreements and such. And the fact that I was able to control the whole process for the client, I was the main point of contact. We were able to bring it together so much quicker and so much smoother because we were a united front. We were, I was able to lean on each colleague that was
internally, instead of having to go to different people within different firms. And when you're dealing with third parties, it can be a little bit slow, can't it, sometimes, to get things back? But
exactly. And that's obviously a very complex example of what we do, but on a much more straightforward front, we've recently completed a transaction that had been hanging around. A broker and a borrower was looking to refinance from one high street lender to another. It was all very straightforward. It was a building society. His asset was a nice property in London. It wasn't the most expensive property in the world, and within 3 days of instructing us, we'd managed to close the transaction. And there was nothing complex about it. We just needed to know who to contact to close things out. We need to speak to the outgoing lender. We need to get search indemnity. We need to ask the right questions. And the borrower just couldn't believe it. The broker, they were both open-mouthed about how quickly it could be done if everyone was on the right path.
All work together, and that's what everything's about, isn't it? Is working together. And I think that's down to knowledge and understanding the market that you're working in, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, for us, the sort of buzzwords we use: transparency. At any given time, anybody, any stakeholder in the transaction can call us. We can tell them exactly where it sits. Responsiveness, you know, if I'm not emailing someone back or calling them back or sending a WhatsApp the same day, then there's a problem there. You know,
Sure.
Everyone needs to be kept in the loop. And you know, as we said before, commerciality, a property transaction can be as complex or as simple as the people involved in it make it. And you know, it's our job to simplify it as far as it can be. And you know, where there are complexities or risks, we speak to the clients and make sure they're fully informed.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks ever so much for all your time. You know, a lot of effort getting in the plane, coming over. It's not not around the corner. So thanks for that. But you know, last year we did something similar on the beach, and Nick wanted to top that. I think, you know, certainly looking at the view there, you know, the swimming pool, the gardens, the tennis court round there, he's done a great job. So thanks, Donald.
It's been a pleasure. Shall we go for a swim?
Absolutely. Why not? Brilliant.